I'm going to show you some AP automation, so where we can again streamline processes, use less resources, so move away from those siloed and manual processes. Like in the survey, you said one of your pain points was those manual processes. So let's show you how BC can streamline those manual processes. And I'm going to pick on accounts payable because that's where we found that a lot of people are saving time is automating their accounts payable process. So I'm going to go back into my email here. I've got a special little email that I've prepared here where I've got a, I'm just going to copy this particular email. I'm going to forward this email. So I'm going to now pretend that I'm a vendor sending, let's just put this in there, sending an invoice off to my Cronus community company, in PDF format. Yep. So I'm just basically mimicking your vendor's processes. So your vendor would be sending you an invoice, and then when I come back into Business Central here, I'll show you what that looks like. So they're going to send it to, accounts at Cronus Community Services, or whatever my company's called. They're going to send it to that particular dedicated account, email account that I have set up. And what happens is in the background, I have all these wonderful processes now that are ready sitting there on standby waiting for that document to land. When that document lands, it goes through what we call an OCR process, which is optical character recognition process, to then pull out all the information about that document so we can start building that document automatically within the system. So what I should see when this refreshes here, I'm waiting for this document capture. Here we go. So you can see I've got a document now at this status of ready to import. So basically it's gone through OCR process. It's now landed in the ready to import. In the background, there's a process that runs every 5 minutes that imports it. I'm just going to kick that off manually so that I can bypass the 5-minute wait. So, but typically this will bring that document straight here into Business Central. So as an accounts payable officer, what do I have to do? The first time I have to interact with this document is when it lands in this ready to register area. And that's assuming that there's some errors with the document. If there's no errors in the document, it should go straight through the OCR process, import into BC, and appear as an accounts payable invoice. But what I've got it doing, I've got it stopping here in what we call the ready to register area, because I want to show you what all this OCR has basically done. So now it appears in this ready to register area. So let's have a look. So in here, we should see that we have a copy of the document come through. And here we are. So on the right here, this is the actual PDF document that I sent across, or the vendor, your professional advantage sent us as a vendor. And you can see all these little squares and what have you. It's basically showing you what that OCR process has done. It's identified the invoice date, it's identified the invoice number, it's identified the line items, and therefore, in essence, this document is all good to go. I don't have to do anything at this point. I've got it stopped here, but if I want to, with a setting in the background, I could have had it automatically flow through. Yeah, but I just wanted to stop to show you what it's done at this point. Yeah, so how it's done that identification. So at this point here, the OCR has identified all the key elements of the invoice. All I've got to do now is go process, register this document, which, like I said, even this step here can be automated by basically the setting in the system. That'll basically go through now and appear as an accounts payable invoice. I want to quickly go through this accounts payable process. Here we go. So here, when I come into the accounts, the purchase invoice screen, you can see there, it's populated all the information for me. It's coded it to the right GL accounts, because in the background, I've set up a specific mapping that says, hey, this particular text, map it to a GL account. So it's done all that for me. It's got a copy of the invoice is now stored here right alongside of the purchase invoice, the transaction. So there's no need to store this in a manual filing cabinet anymore. When the auditors come at the end of the year or month or quarter and ask you for a copy of the invoice, there it is there. In fact, you know what, auditors? Why don't you log on and get it yourself? Because basically it's all here. So all this information all here, ready to go. All I've got to do now is route this for approval. Yeah. So I'm just going to send this off for approval, and this will go off and send an email off to the approver saying, hey, that's ready to approve. I didn't put a default approval code on here because I was going to talk about that. I can manually assign an approval flow here as to which way I want this to flow through the organization. You can see I've got a couple of different approval flows set up there. I'm just going to route this through the non-capital approval flow as opposed to the capital one, and off it goes. So now, remember, I've done this as a user Business Central. So what that means is that Robert now should see this in his in-tray waiting to be approved. So I can switch over to user Robert now. And if I come down onto my homepage here, when I get to my approval area down here, you can see here, I've got one request to approve, yeah? So I could click on it here and approve it. But of course, that's a bit cumbersome because that would require me, looking at the system and monitoring and being logged onto the system. So most of the times what we find is that approvers live within the application. So don't live within the application. So they're more than likely living here in their Outlook, waiting for an email to come through, which I'm waiting for, whereby that would alert them to the fact that there's a document there waiting for their approval, which would look something like this. Whereby the invoice, there we go, I think that's just arrived. There it is there. So I can now open up the email, which alerts me to it, and you can see I can use the link directly here within the email to open that up. So being an approver of, in this case, being an approver of the invoice, I don't have to separately log on to the system to do that. I can basically just come in here. Oh, sorry, I'm logged onto the wrong company. But basically, from this pop-up window, because I'm logged onto the wrong company, it's not going to pop up. But I could have logged on here, and let's go into Cronus Community Services. Thank you. And that should now find that document. And from that document directly and from the email here, I can approve that. There it is there. I go, yeah, fine. I'm just going to go through this quickly, and I can approve that straight from here without separately doing that separate login again. So hopefully what I've shown you there is we've cut down on the manual processes. We've streamlined that whole process of getting the invoice, entering the invoice. So really all I'm doing now is I'm reviewing the invoice rather than entering the invoice. And that's only if there's any issues with it anyway. And then the approval process is all done electronically. All of that information is all stored within Business Central. So at any one time now, when I go in and look at that purchase invoice, it's all stored within the solution.